All right.
3, 2, 1. And we're live here with Josh Wilson, a longtime associate, friend, pal. A lot of mutual respect. At least I've always kind of looked up to you. I remember the first time we met each other in junior high school in the field house. You were already a regular Renaissance man. Baseball, football. And you know what? I'll say this, like, I don't know if I ever said this to you, but like, I know you gave all that up and kind of went music and theater and choir, and I had a lot of respect for you for doing that.
Yeah, that was a big
you were an
decision
athlete
at the time.
You were an athlete, man, and I looked up to you as an athlete first. Because, I mean, you lived in my grandma's neighborhood, too.
Yeah, and the sports are a big deal, especially in small towns, and some different things happened. I felt like it wasn't right for me anymore, and, you know, maybe looking back, with wisdom I didn't have as a 16-year-old, I may have kept playing basketball, but, you know, the world moves on.
I would say you probably, just based off what I know about you, probably felt way more fulfilled doing those other things. And I've told some people this recently. I didn't go to public school till 8th grade, and that's when I first met you. But I think I'd seen you around before then, but it's like first time I ever talked to you. And like, I'm in the counselor's office signing up for classes, and I'm like, yeah, I want to play football. That's something I want to do. I want to do some organized sports. I've obviously never been able to do that because I've been homeschooled, and I also want to be in band. And they're like, well, you can't do both.
Yeah, and I hate that there's kind of that separation of
they're like, you have to choose right now. Here make a choice. Like, do you want to think about it? Here's 30 seconds. You know.
Yeah, I don't know why kids can't just have fun doing what is fun to them. And even in sports, there's a lot of specialization that goes on at a really early age, and that makes me sad for the kids who just can't have fun.
Yeah, I know, right? Or like, and I don't know if that was like why I bring that up is because you're probably the only person I know that was uber talented at sports that like went on to be just as talented at theater, at music. Because I mean, just a real quick fanboy plug on your band in high school, which I went to see a couple of shows. I mean, you know, like I was able to. You might not have done that if you would have stayed in organized sports. Remember that show y'all did at the Marvin?
Yeah, I do remember that.
That was a sick show.
That was a lot of fun, especially for kids our age in that town. It was a big deal.
Well, and the quality of the show, the production, the lights, the sound, it was all pro.
We did have the advantage of our guitarist dad was in like an actual band.
April's Fool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they had all this equipment that you wouldn't normally have as a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And that kind of made it seem like a bigger deal than it was. I don't think I was any more talented or successful at music than anybody else. I think the advantage I had is that my parents were so supportive.
Yeah.
So growing up, it was sports, and that's just kind of like what they knew is like sports. So they supported me through sports, and then I was like, yeah, I really like music and theater and stuff. And they're like,
weren't you all region choir and
awesome? Yeah, and they were just like relentlessly supportive of me no matter what. And I think at a time in your life where you're really not sure of yourself and not sure of a lot of things, even though you act like you really are, that support from my parents is what really allowed me to just kind of like switch seemingly effortlessly from the outside to just like, oh, I'm just going to do this now. But just having that support of my parents is...
Well, man, and I know that you probably had your own internal conflicts, but at the time, me being an observer of that situation and you kind of like transitioning into other things, I was just like, man, this guy hasn't figured out. Like, that's, you know, from the outside, but that's like, it was almost inspiring in a way.
Well, and that's just 100% the support of parents, because as you just know that everything's going to be fine. Like whatever happens, everything's going to be fine. These people love me. They support me, and it takes the pressure off in a way that frees you to just try to be good at something and have fun at it.
Yeah. Nice. Well, man, I'm very happy to have you on the podcast. Hopefully we can have you on other times as well. I'm sure we can bring up tons of things to talk about. I was thinking just we should like do a little speed game of chess to show the world how fast that you can beat me, because we've never played a real life game of chess. So I just split this down.
You want to play a speed game or just play as we talk?
Let's just do a speed game, and we'll just kind of have some fun with it. I haven't done much
speed chess recently, but
you know, you're one of the only people I've ever played speed chess with, and I figured we could play a long game the whole podcast. We could do a quick one at the beginning, and it's a different game. I like it because it's a lot, like I was saying, it's a lot like jiu-jitsu to me, because you have to just process what's going on so much faster.
Well, you bring in the pressure of the clock, because even sometimes if you're getting beat, if you've played faster, all of a sudden you can win on time, and so that's definitely a different strategy than just a long game.
I noticed that too. At the end of the game when there's a few pieces left on the board. So you want to do 5 minutes?
Yeah, you want to? I think I actually have a.
Look at you!
I think I have a proper chess timer.
All right, let's do that.
Let me.
Fantastic.
It's funny playing in front of a board.
I know, just because you play online a lot.
Yeah, I play almost exclusively online, and I can't think and talk at the same time.
Man, it's funny because like periodically you get into like an hour or two podcasts. This happened on the very last one I just uploaded. We're talking and we're about to plug this dude's YouTube channel, which he's got some Avett Brothers songs on there that have like 11,000 views on them. He's records awesome video from every concert he goes to, and we were like, and what were we talking about?
Yep.
And I was like, hey, this happens all the time. And then we finally remembered what we were talking about, and I was like, oh, we're talking about you. Okay, well, let's plug your channel. But it was funny because, man, that's how conversation goes, and I noticed that sort of thing happening more and more.
Yeah, I recently played some college kid at the Penny.
Yeah. Penny University?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent coffee shop.
Yeah, I've been in there a few times. They still doing karaoke and stuff?
I don't know. My daughter does ballet and tap on Monday nights.
Okay.
And it's like right around the corner, and I love it. I feel like I'm at my own house, but better.
And they're a nonprofit, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. I just know the lady that runs it's real sweet, real nice, real friendly.
Yeah.
Very
I mean,
inviting.
that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have an arrangement with and I'm gonna have him on the podcast. The guy that owns Midtown Coffee, he's got him Josiah. Pretty good bass player from what I hear as well. We may jam together someday. But he's coming to the gym and stuff, so that's where I got this cold brew over here.
Is that the nitro?
It's not the nitro, because and if you listen to this, Josiah, I need the nitro cold brew in this size.
Okay.
It's the size.
I tried some
smaller.
of that nitro, and it's
just makes it like a Guinness.
It's very
a coffee flavored.
It really
Guinness.
is. It's so intense.
Yeah, but I really do like it. And the cold brew, just the way it's made, is so much more potent. I was big on espresso. I mean, okay, so real quick segue. I know, because I remember you coming into the coffee house a lot that I worked at when I was in high school, and you were a senior. And you would
the first one that was where the Fox and the Fork is now.
Yes, like Dylan Egan.
Yeah.
Man, I miss that guy.
Do you remember when we thought he was Stephen King for a while?
Okay, so Hank's who we thought was Stephen King. Yeah,
He told us that Hank
Dylan trolled us, man.
Yes. Yeah. And he had that magazine.
I'm still not sure that Hank's not.
It hasn't been proven that he's not. And he had that magazine. And this is like one of those stories that people like. This is pre-Google everything, so you can't just look up on your phone and be like, "Oh, well, Stephen King's in Manchester right now at a book signing." Like, it's like, well, it does kind of look like him. And then it's like, but then you don't want to look, and you're just doing the thing like, yeah.
And Hank was like a super scientist too. He had all this biology. He told me once a super sad story about his parents passing away and him like cutting his hand practically off with a scalpel in med school. I guess he went to med school or grad school for biology or something, but he just like out of nowhere told me, he's like, yeah, my mom and dad died the same week, and then I was in, doing some dissection with the scalpel and just, and I was like, oh, Hank. But great dude.
It's just funny how you can convince yourself of almost anything, though.
Yeah.
Because
Avril Lavigne's really dead.
A 10-day period where I thought I knew Stephen King.
So funny. Yeah. That is, it's hilarious. Like there's a professor I had in high school in college rather, that we just knew he was a spy. And it's because he taught the class espionage. First day, he's like, greatest cover for a spy, professor in a foreign university. And I'm just like, dude, you don't even look like you're from here, man.
Right.
It was funny though. I still talk. He's one of my brown belts in jiu-jitsu.
And then if you really were a spy, the best way to cover it up would be to joke about it.
That's some like triple agent stuff.
Yeah, it's like 4 layers deep in Inception. Yeah.
Yeah. A dream inside of a dream on top of a dream. Yeah, hilarious.
That movie still holds up.
It really does, man. I need to rewatch it too. I was just saying somebody made a joke about it the other day, and I don't watch it anymore, but periodically I'll watch an episode. But South Park did an episode on Inception that's kind of what I was riffing on. They're like, it's a dream inside of a dream on top of a dream.
See, I feel like I don't know if we're way off topic or what, and I don't know why I feel the need to defend this movie, but somehow this narrative got going around that, well, all Ellen Page's character does is explain stuff that's going on. And I'm like, that's like every movie and book story, like, and TV show, someone has to say, here come the police officer. Like,
yeah,
it's such a complex idea. Like, there has to be somebody saying, well, this is how it works, and this is this. I like that. I mean, I get what they're saying. It's like an unorthodox approach to most people's view of storytelling, I guess. I just think it's one of those things that catches on the internet, and then people who never even heard the term exposition are now suddenly complaining about this character talking too much that's not real dialogue. I don't know. As much as I love the internet, sometimes it can be frustrating.
It's a daunting place. I mean, for the most part, with anything other than like Facebook, I never read comments of any kind. Like I've already decided that on all my podcasts, I'm never going to read the comments. And
I think NPR turned off their comments, didn't they?
Genius move for NPR.
I don't know all the comments are on Facebook, but even then, it's like you're not qualified. You're not qualified.
I will say this real quick because like right now, YouTube is all I've got going for the podcast. I've got it in my iTunes, but I hosted with Podbean last night, and I'd made an account there a couple weeks ago. But man, it is crazy. Out of all the top podcasting sites, I mean, because I was just up in there on whether to do a website, and I was playing around with Squarespace and getting my images the way I wanted, and like SoundCloud. They won't let me do 3 hours a month of uploads. Like a lot of these podcasting sites are like, I don't know how long we'll end up talking today, but I've done several that are over 2 hours, and that's like a month worth on SoundCloud. And then you upgrade to the next package. You're like, now we give you 6. But Podbean is giving unlimited audio storage for like $100 for the whole year, or like $9 a month. So I'm looking forward to that, getting that, because it's automatic upload into Stitcher and iTunes. So
nice.
Yeah, like that's where like Stitcher and iTunes are different in that I have to have this like intermediary host to get an RSS feed. So that's the thing people can subscribe to, and it'll be good. But I doubt I'll end up doing a website in the near future. I've got all these evolutions of this thing planned. Like that wall is going to be different next time you're here for sure.
Websites are hard.
I have 4 right now, man, and we're actually consolidating into 2. So, smart. But one's a member site that's login. And man, I've thought about, like, I got a lot of like privy information on there in my view for like our kickboxers and jiu-jitsu people, but I've thought about just making it all open instead of having people log into it, you know?
That's interesting.
Yeah, well, let's get going to this chess game, man. I flipped it around. Guess goes first with the white.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm actually not sure of the rule. I think I have to hit this. Oh, okay, I did it backwards. So you're going to start the clock for me, I think.
Okay, so I hit here or there?
Yeah, you hit here.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay,
and
gotcha.
I'm just going to...
All right.
Don't forget to...
Oh, yeah, I got you.
So,
okay, man, we're legit.
Right,
we got the thing. I feel like the movie Little Giants right now, the annexation of Puerto Rico.
I have no idea what opening I'm lost already.
Yeah, I know. Looking at the board is different, and I noticed that when we were playing online. Looking at the board online is different. I don't know. It's just like I perceive their moves a little differently.
King, right?
Correct.
Oops. Sorry. Don't forget to do this. I'm going to write it down for you. Okay.
We'll figure it out. Good times, man. When I got this chessboard, I was like, I got to have Josh on the podcast. Your name was like before I even started this, I made a list of 100 people I wanted to have on the podcast. I just heard this on Joe Rogan the other day. Have you heard that humans can only store perhaps up to 150 names at a time in their brain?
I believe that.
I do too.
I'm so terrible with names. I just met someone the other day at the solar ribbon cutting thing in Clarksville.
Yeah, how was that? That's interesting.
It was cool. It was great. I was determined to memorize this girl's name, and I think it's either Courtney or Jessica.
I've been doing that. Like, I'm teaching that Western Civ class in Morrilton now, and I've been trying to memorize. We have 32 students, and they don't all come to class at the same time, so it's kind of difficult.
How has teaching been going?
It's great, man. I actually love it. Like, it's pretty. Like this, like I told Corey this when I was, because I got the podcast and the teaching job going kind of around the same time, and they both just, I feel like, level me out, like I feel more fulfilled as a person, getting to talk about things more. I just lectured on the Mongols for 2 days, and I started talking about America's pre-Columbus and Europe.
So what's the class you're doing?
Western Civ 2, so that's like,
oh man,
you could say 1500 to present, roughly.
Okay. One of my favorite classes was History of Western Civ. And the professor, I think it was like the only year he even taught. It was like he was in between jobs. Yeah.
See, this is the only class I teach, so I'm able to put a little more into it, and I let the students interact with me a little more. And I was like, if I'm teaching 5 classes next semester, it ain't going to be this way.
I think his name was Nick McClure. He was just so interesting.
McClure.
Yeah.
Interesting. See, yeah, you're already better than me. You got 50 seconds ahead of me. That's where it gets interesting. Come to find out.
So, yeah, I guess I already touched this, so I'm supposed to play it.
Hey, house rules, and you do whatever you want, bro. You're the guest.
Okay.
But back on the coffee shop story, I remember one night, and I actually told somebody this story the other day, you coming in there and like trying to figure your life out. And I remember Ron Leonard told me, it's like, yeah, Josh trying to figure his life out right now. And I was like, I thought this dude had it figured out. And but you were in there playing like a Rolling Stone and Twist and Shout, and Dylan was losing his mind about how he's like, I'm gonna hustle. I want to hustle people that with your piano playing. But I do remember you doing a rendition of Twist and Shout that was, it blew my mind.
Well, they had just like a Beatles fake book in there.
Yeah, because Ron Leonard had those fake book businesses. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was my bad.
We'll let this go a little longer so that you can get caught up. And I learned so much about music in there, just turning one page at a time in those fake books and like pretending to play.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and just, it's like, okay, I'm going to let this go a little longer.
Okay, well, you go ahead, man. That's fine. Yeah, those fake books were interesting, and what an interesting thing to be an entrepreneur of. That guy had a fascinating life story. Is he still around?
Yeah, I still see him, because mom and dad live over there by them. I see him walking around.
Do I need to hit? Dadgum, man, I keep forgetting. Okay, all right, don't worry about it.
I'll just try to win on checkmate so we don't get
I'll just try to annihilate you before the 3 minutes is up. Likely to happen, excuse me.
Okay, we'll let that go for a second.
Okay.
These bishops are a little
They do look a lot like a pawn with a little drop on top.
Double check every time. They're not quite. They're not very much taller than the pawns. Yeah, that's right. That's
okay,
right.
good. This is a cool board. This is the first game I played on it, so I'm pretty excited about it.
I don't have a good... I found when I moved into my house, in the shed, there was this really, really nice, like, bronze set.
Nice.
And I asked the guy that I bought the house from, like, did you mean to leave this, or do you want it back? And he's like, it looks really nice, but if you like chess, I'd rather you have it because I don't have a use for it.
I meet a lot of people with decent boards that don't even know how to play, per se. Come on.
And...
minute 24 left on my clock.
So he was really cool about it, and he was like, hey, if you like chess, you just keep that.
I've got a cool wooden set, but it's at a buddy of mine's house who I used to play with, but then he moved to Bentonville, so I could get it back. But I have this now, which is way cooler than the wooden set.
Well, so I ended up giving that to my brother-in-law when he got married. Or when my sister-in-law got married, I gave it to her husband as like a wedding gift.
Nice.
So I only have just like a travel set right now, like a tournament, just like the little roll-up board.
So we actually have a topic we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But this is the thing, like you call a podcast something like Life Unraveled, you can get away with talking about anything
I think that's
and everything.
A lot of podcasts run out of material in like after like 10 weeks.
Well, and I've segregated some things out. So like I do like a sports spot where like all we talk about is
that's smart.
MMA, jiu-jitsu, and stuff like that. That way that doesn't come up too much on because man, owning a martial arts school and doing MMA, judo, jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, it's easy to lean on those topics a little bit. It's just because it's daily life for me. Okay. Hee hee.
Okay, it's getting serious now.
All right, yeah, 51 seconds to minute 14. But, and I just did my first music Unraveled on Todd Snyder. Have you ever listened to Todd Snyder?
Mm-mm.
He is a storyteller, man. Like, I would put him right up in there in a category with, like, Dylan.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, he did a cover of Mr. Bojangles. It was super legit. I was a big fan of it. 27 seconds on my clock.
Check.
Dang it. I do like the concept of this speed chess, though, simply because it forces you to act almost without thinking.
You're blocked here.
Like jiu-jitsu. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Yes. Okay. It forces you to think about jiu-jitsu a lot more when you're not thinking about it. You just kind of react. Speed chess. Fascinating idea. Like you were really, I knew it existed, and I'd seen people play it, but you're the first person I knew.
It's fun because it just forces you into like just play. You can analyze your mistakes later. Just play a bunch of chess.
It is totally different too.
Check. And
can I take that? I'm out of time.
Protected here.
I'm out of time. Yeah.
I think it was checkmate.
Yeah, I think you're right. Boom, boom, dude. Good job. All right.
That's fun. That was
excellent, man.
fun.
I was looking forward to it. I was going to hit you up and see if you wanted to play
This
again.
is the problem with playing online. I don't even know. I'm not even sure because the computer won't let you make illegal moves. So if something...
I know, right?
Yeah, so like...
well, what is the rule? I was going to ask you this, where you can use a pawn to attack sideways. You can only do that in a certain situation.
It's called en passant, or like in passing, I think. And so like if you have... you can only do it to another pawn. And so if if we're stacked here like this and you move or if I'm like this, and then this is how it goes. Okay. If I take my first move double,
yes,
past your protected square, you have the option to say, no, I want to go ahead and take that. Or wait, is this a bishop? Sorry.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sorry.
I had to double check that several times.
So, like, if I move past your protected square, you can say, no, I have that square protected, so I'm going to go ahead and capture there.
Yeah.
So
I
love that move.
Well, see, playing the computer is how I started charting it, because if it came up a couple of times, I'm like, or I would accidentally do it just playing around on the board.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, how was
That's
I able
funny.
to attack sideways? I wasn't even charting it, and then I Googled it.
Yeah. My friend Christopher Ward, who we all call Critter, hates that move.
Yeah.
Because I get him on it every time.
And yeah, good times, bro.
Oh, my heart's beating fast. When I played that college kid at the coffee shop, I got done and I was like,
I was sweating profusely.
Yeah, I had to go excuse myself for a minute, and yeah, because I don't play face to face with people that often.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what a cool, as soon as this buddy of mine gave me this, he recorded some of the music that I'm in the process of getting edited for the intros and different things. That's something I got going on in the background. I'm excited to logo
So yeah, you can't use
animations.
any sort of.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
YouTube
I mean, I
is
understand
getting stricter
it.
and
I understand
stricter.
it.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
We'll see what's good about the music Unraveled. I saw Drive By Truckers a few months ago, and we're doing a Drive By Truckers Unraveled today, but all of the images and all the videos we have that I'll edit in, we own.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, we were there. We took them on our phone.
Yeah.
So, and on the audio, I usually I've been linking, the videos from my buddy Michael, he recorded. We just link it up in the description, so it's not, but I could play the video. But, I get it. I hear the downside of Spotify and things like that, and how much people are getting paid, and artists, or that's just a major part of their narrative. And I mean, that's why, if I understand it correctly, Tool is not on Spotify.
Really?
I heard that they're going to get on, that they're going to be put on Spotify soon, perhaps. A Perfect Circle and Pussifer, Maynard's other bands are on there, but Tool is not. Zeppelin wasn't for a long time. The Beatles weren't for a long time. It has to do with royalties and payouts.
I understand if you're a bigger band like that, how it affects you.
Yeah, well, I mean, just name some of the biggest bands of all time. A lot of people say Tool is the Led Zeppelin, one of the Zeppelins of our generation, and I kind of agree.
I think most of it, though, is you're getting pennies for plays that you wouldn't be getting otherwise. I found so many bands.
It's diversification, yeah.
I was on Spotify. I switched to Apple Music recently after one of their updates, just because it's built into. I'm not trying to turn this into Apple versus Spotify. I love Spotify. I think it's great. I've just been in iTunes for so long that it knows my listening history for so long. Yeah. I have 100 playlists in it. So it made sense for me to switch back. Anyway, but it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. And it's you may also like such and such. And it's I've never heard of that. But you're right. I do like that.
That's one thing I really enjoyed. I don't do Pandora anymore, but we did for a long time. We actually did the paid at the gym. But then it would we would like a certain station, and then next thing you know, F You, I Won't Do What You Tell Me by Rage Against the Machine is playing during kids class.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But we would get, because we were on paid, it wasn't edited. And then it would just skip around periodically. We'd be listening to a rock station, and then next thing you know, Hurt by Johnny Cash comes on.
See, I almost felt like Pandora was too smart. Over time, the algorithm became so narrow.
I agree.
That I got skip fatigue. I got scared to skip. I don't know what the word for that is, but I'd be well, I like this song.
It's almost listening to the actual radio.
But the moment's not right. So I want to skip it, but I don't want it to think that I don't like this song, because I do like this song and I really like this band. So I wanted to know I like this band. So it's well,
remember when I was on unpaid, you only got a certain number of skips.
Oh, so you had to ration them.
Yeah, man, that was a bummer. And then I want to say that, because I did a lot of skipping around too.
See, I'm too much of a music snob though for Spotify. I'm like, no, I have a playlist. I made it. I put it in an order. Do not shuffle it. It's in the right order.
Nice.
So just start at the top. It's very carefully crafted. We do that for the gym. Yeah. So it's definitely a great business model because most people don't care that much.
What do you think about this? What do you think about the argument that for bands that are anti, so like guess who's one of the anti people against Spotify? James Hetfield from Metallica, of course.
Well,
makes total sense. But what do you think about this? So they get paid like 0.0009 cents, depending on the band. I think that's negotiable. But they're saying that because services like this are available, and like if you have a Spotify playlist and it's super awesome, even if I don't pay and you do, or even if neither one of us does, I can subscribe to your playlist. So what they're saying is their whole database and archive of music is available. Therefore, no one's going to buy their albums. Therefore, therefore, album sales, whether it's vinyl, CD, or cassettes, or whatever kids have brought back into retro fashion these days. Because records are at every show I go to now.
I know.
I like that. That's why I got the record player across the hall.
I don't know. I have mixed feelings on it because I understand what they're saying as an artist, though. Again,
it's 2018.
Well, yeah, I think the world just moves on.
It's the digital era. I don't even have cable anymore.
I think Taylor Swift's figured it out, and she's making a lot of money. But everyone wants her music. Versus if you're kind of like a more unknown band, it's kind of like I think you're getting a lot of. People are listening to your music and paying you a little bit where they normally wouldn't be listening to your music at all.
Correct. It raises awareness.
So, I don't know. I mean, as a writer, I don't want to give my stuff away.
Well, it's not like they're just, I guess their argument is no different than like the Wild West Napster days because they can't, whereas iTunes, you have to buy the song or buy the album. Mm-hmm. I feel on Spotify you pay the monthly and you get unlimited listens. Therefore, you never will buy. I'm gonna tell you right now, I haven't bought anything since. We for like
I add a
demo
lot of stuff
team
to my
and stuff.
library.
We've mixed some things. Yeah, precisely.
But it's just, I am sympathetic to it, and I also do it. So I'm sympathetic to them. I understand them, especially if you're somebody that's been in the music industry for a long time, you've had like this 20-year career where it worked one way.
Yes, exactly.
And now it's like, well, it doesn't work that way
I've been
anymore.
thinking about it's like I submitted to get on Spotify for the podcast, and I haven't heard anything back. And apparently it's somewhat more difficult to get your podcast on Spotify. But for podcasting, it seems different in terms of like, well, this is the way that it's done.
Right.
Whereas there wasn't a preceding way like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I mean, I've had people tell me, well, you should just make your own website and put all your short stories on there for free. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I already don't get any money for them. Why do all that work and still not get any money for them?
So tell me this, how long have you been writing short stories?
Well, I loved writing in high school. I had an amazing set of literature/English teachers that really encouraged me.
Who did you have?
So I had the full high school, like the dream team of Fikes, Martin.
Miss Fikes. Yeah, see, Martin was gone, and I got replaced with Coslet, who was
okay. So I didn't know her, but so then to Miss Thompson, and then Miss Ussery. So that's like the complete dream team spectrum of English teachers.
I had a great time in
They're
Miss Ussery's
super
class.
Encouraging. It was also challenging, That
was a challenging class.
And they just they wouldn't let me BS my way through stuff. And they're like, Josh, I think you're smarter than this. I think you can turn in a better paper than this. And they really encouraged me. And I would write. I wrote for the newspaper in college, which there's no, just volunteering you're qualified for. And I would occasionally write a thing here or there that really stuck out to me. And then I ran into Eli Craner at my cousin's wedding.
Is that who you mentioned to me as published? Lives here in Russellville. I think I added him on Facebook, but I need a. Did you mention anything to him?
No.
Dude, we could do a double with both you guys.
I mean, he's in a stratosphere. He's like a hero of mine. So
I bet he would feel comfortable if you were here because I don't know who he is.
But he had been writing a bunch and had at that time several short stories published and was working on a novel. And we were just at like the, wedding receptions are so weird. Like it, my wife's a wedding photographer, so she's all about the wedding industry. But it's a strange environment. Like all these people here, no one really knows everyone.
Yeah.
But we all know these two people, so we're kind of like partying. We're kind of having a good time, but it's like...
Props on that blazer you wore to my wedding reception, by the way.
I love that blue blazer. I got that at a friend's wedding. That's like my wedding blazer.
Man, I've just been, for the first time really in my life, purchasing clothes of that nature. Because like right now I'm wearing sweatpants and a gym shirt.
That's the good life, though.
It is, but it kind of feels good to like, I've been doing this for about 10 years now. So like I've been coming out of the sweatpants and putting on slacks. Like, I actually just scored some serious, I got two pairs of corduroy, one are burgundy. I love corduroy
Excellent.
pants.
I haven't worn corduroys in a long time, but they're very comfortable.
They're kind of stretchy.
Yeah. Well, the new jeans kind of have a little spandex in them too.
Yeah, see, I scored some Old Navy pants, and they were like 75% off, man. Like kind of like a skinnier fit. Yeah. I mean, they're great professor pants.
Yeah, that's that. Corduroy and a blazer is 100% professor.
Oh, and I got a velvet blazer. It was actually draped over that chair right before you got here, and I hung it in this closet. This is my professor wardrobe closet over here. Well,
my wife loves it when I wear dress clothes, so that's like my big incentive to keep dress clothes is because I'm like, I'm still me, and she's like, yeah, but you look great in that blazer. I'm like, all right, fine. Like, I'm enough of a pragmatist to just be like, okay, that's okay.
So I would say, like, based off my memory, you didn't dress too traditional in our high school days.
That's true. I was a huge clothes horse when I was younger, and I always wanted to be flamboyant, outrageous clothes. And I don't know when I think just having kids at some point, I'm just like, if I can eliminate 15 minutes out of my morning of choosing what to wear, I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
So I just kind of slowly transitioned to, I have about 15 solid colored t-shirts and 3 pairs of jeans. I don't even consider what I'm going to wear ever.
See, now, like, I went from having like not enough slacks to like 14 pair.
It does get, I think I got 2 pairs of shoes for Christmas, and it like the bug bit me again of like, oh man, I need like.
Man, I had a pair of my Vans on the porch the other day, and a dog took them.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's one more reason.
Cora was not happy because then she forgot about it because I kind of got in trouble about it, and she forgot about it. And she's like, "Where are your gray Vans?" I was like, "Yeah." So she really liked those shoes. She was not happy.
Yeah.
So.
I did have that same blue blazer on, I think, at my cousin's wedding, and I ran into Eli, just catching up, and I don't want to tell his story for him, so you can have him on. He can tell his story. But
Definitely.
He was like, "Yeah, I'm writing a ton now. I've been published." So I just thought that was the most amazing thing.
Is he a full-time writer?
No, he's a teacher.
Was he a teacher at Tech or high school?
At high school.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I to be published didn't seem possible to me before. I had never really thought about it. I just, I'd submitted some things to like the New Yorker as like a joke, just to kind of say I had, because you get like a sorry, not sorry letter back no matter what. And so, but to like know someone that was published, I just thought that was the most amazing thing.
It is. I'm always, one of my mentors, the guy I mentioned, Jiu-Jitsu brown belt earlier, that he was one of my professors, the espionage spy guy. He's about to publish his 3rd book.
Yeah.
Pacification and Nation Building in Vietnam.
That sounds like an interesting book.
It does. Yeah. I'm hoping I get to read his manuscript. He told me that he would see about getting me a copy. But he's written 2 other books I have on my shelf in here that I use them for lecture material.
And I just thought that, and so I was kind of like, fawning over him a little bit, and he's kind of a demure type of guy, and he's like, dude, just start writing. Just, and I'm like, I don't know, like with all the normal excuses you probably hear him at the gym, just like the standard thing, like I don't have time,
it's a confidence thing,
I don't
man.
know what to do, and he's like just write.
I don't know how to podcast, but here we are podcasting.
Like, it doesn't matter what you write, you just gotta write. You gotta decide that you actually want to do it, and it's a discipline, just like running or whatever your hobby is, woodworking or going to the gym. He's like, you just got to do it. You got to do it a bunch, and eventually you'll write something and you'll get done and you'll say, that's pretty good. I mean, I
always struggled with writing lyrics over the past, because and too a little bit on just like guitar parts and music. Like I have this issue with music, with it never being, I'm never satisfied with it. I'm less that way in like martial arts, but still a little bit the same. There is that aspect of it, and it is a confidence thing, because like I wrote a bunch of poetry when I was a teenager, and it's all just absurd now. Like I still have all my books, and it's in 100 years hilarious. We're gonna be like Josh Wilson's sonnets. It's so funny, yeah. But but you're kind of in a mental state at 17 where you just kind of let that pour out of you. Yeah.
And then you kind of get older, and you kind of learn how to act, and you learn how to shake hands, and be polite and stuff. And that's kind of like a wall that you have to not stand behind, and you just have to say, I'm just going to write and write and write and write. And so I started doing it. I started waking up early before the kids were up, and just writing a bunch of stuff, and a lot of it's not any good, and then it just like slowly gets better.
Refined.
It's like training, you can't fake training.
Yeah.
And it's not that I didn't know how to write, so to speak, but you still have to practice it and practice it. And then there's a book that gets referenced a lot by Stephen King called On Writing, and it's just his manifesto about the craft of writing. And Eli told me to read that. I did. And just
I'm going to look
writing
into that, because I've tried to find, I mean, it's like the classic for dummies book type of a deal. It's like, where do you actually find a good book that is gonna, hey, here's how you can hone your writing skills without going to the guy I had on last Friday that did the Todd Snyder review with me. We went to that concert together. He teaches creative writing. He's an English professor.
Really?
So, that is a course that sadly I never got to take, and I always wanted to take it. And the guy who taught it at Tech is a published author. You might look into him. He's a pretty eccentric guy. His name's Dr. Michael Carl Ritchie. I'm friends with him on Facebook, and he's retired now, but there's some of my professors that are retired that I want to have on. Like my former philosophy professor, I saw him at the coffee shop the other day. He's like, Brian, if I can ever do anything, let me know. I'm like, I'm sending your wife a Facebook message, because on Facebook.
You should have Miss Thompson on, and Miss.
I haven't talked to her in forever. Yeah, she's still teaching at Clarksville?
No, she's a principal. They're both principals.
Oh.
Miss Martin, who is I can't think of her last name now. But yeah, they're both like principals. That's what I was saying. It's like the dream team, because they're like both like way up on the upside of their career, and it just all happened to line up where I got like that perfect 4 of them right in a row.
See, Ushery retired after my senior year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Then I saw her at Arby's, and I hadn't seen her since.
I run into them from time to time.
Yeah, if I was around Clarksville more, I'm sure I would. But she was such a nice lady, and I was super interested. You know how it gets when you're a senior, and I mean, I think we're both still young enough to remember this, but like, the senioritis is a thing. Like, I got strep and mono my senior year, so I was always just like sleeping on the table and stuff, and you're I don't know, kind of like disenfranchised. Kind of like I felt all the time when I was a senior, like when you would come into the coffee house on like a Monday night.
That's funny.
Like, I would just like, you would come in and you looked so sad.
Well, you just get to that. It's like your whole life has been about going to school, and then it's kind of like you can kind of see the finish line, and it's kind of like, why did I do that? Like,
dude, when I was watching,
it's a very existential moment.
Kind of go through that, and then Ron was just like, yeah, he's trying to figure out what's next, where he's going to go to school.
That's so dramatic.
And stuff like this.
So dramatic.
You would be like sloped like on the couch like this, just like,
oh gosh.
You could tell you were just in deep thought, and I'm like, shit, is this what I'm in for?
It's so funny because like my life could not have been more perfect up until that point.
Well,
Like,
I mean, like, just to start, like, really, I wanted to bring this up of me, like, looking at you all the way to that point, and then I'm like, this dude doesn't have it figured out anymore. Like,
well, when that's kind of what you're figuring out is that there's nothing to figure out. Like, no one has anything figured out. And you're like, I was going to achieve, I graduated, and I'm going to go to college. But then you just kind of like look around, and it's like, okay.
were you at that time considering, like, was there ever a thought where you thought about doing music more seriously?
I didn't. I never really thought about doing like trying to move to Nashville or trying to. I'd seen enough older people than me like kind of chase that breeze for a while.
Yeah.
And similar with sports, where I was just like, it's been fun. I love it. I'm always gonna play music. I'm always gonna have a guitar by my couch. I'm always going to go play pickup basketball on Sunday afternoon if someone wants to go. But I don't think...
It's life.
Yeah.
It's a part of life.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. So I don't... And that's what's been so interesting about writing, and that's one of the things Eli told me is... he's like, you don't have to give up your life to do this. Like, just be disciplined about it.
So do you have like a certain amount of time you shoot for? Because I've heard I had a stand-up comic on. He's saying some of the things like, you got to write. Mm-hmm. I'm always writing, always refining. I've heard other people say that. But Jeff Woods, a history professor that has the books, he is he like you. He gets up. His kids are a little older now, teenage, and one just graduated high school. But 5, 6, 7 years ago, he's told me the same thing. He gets up and at that time when nobody's around, and he plays guitar too, but like just, started off later in life, and he has a certain amount, like 30 minutes he dedicates every day to playing the guitar, and like 30 minutes to an hour, a certain amount of time he does writing. It's like that will happen.
Right. Because
it's just like he's going to come to noon class and train jiu-jitsu. It will happen.
Right. And it's just a decision that Eli encouraged me to make of, because I probably watched, I could name the number of TV shows that I've seen beginning to end on Netflix or Hulu or HBO. So the hours are in the day.
Precisely. Like when I start talking about game, I watched so much, I had to start a sub podcast to talk about that.
Of what?
But just like, okay, so Cora and I did seasons 1 through 4 review of Black Mirror.
Okay.
We're doing a review of Godless and Dark. Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen Dark, it's like adult Stranger Things. It's
okay.
Teenage and adult. And it's got this time travel element.
I love time travel.
It's only one season right now.
Okay.
And it's this black hole, 33 years. It's like 3 different timelines. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Westworld, Game of Thrones. I just we watched King Arthur with Charlie Hunman. Mm-hmm. Brandon Motley, one of my guys, came over, reviewed all the seasons of Sons of Anarchy. Yeah. So it's just like stuff that we like. It's like, well, let's just have a big conversation about that.
Right. And so I do love that. And it's like, as much as I could like blame it on my kids or I don't have time or work, it's like I live a pretty good life. There's time. Like there is the hours in the day. Maybe I don't need to have seen every episode of Murder, She Wrote twice.
Nice drop. Is that a true story?
Yeah, I've got nice. I actually 1.5. I've been like, I got really into that for a while. It's just one of those weird things that it just became a habit of like, I was in between shows or whatever, and I was like, oh, Murder, She Wrote.
I remember that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
What's the actress's name that's in
Angela Lansbury.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, well, so it just became a habit. I would just turn it on, and then I discovered this internet theory that was saying that she's actually like a serial killer. Wow. And so, because you think of like, who do you know that's personally been around like 400 murders?
Dexter.
Yes, exactly. and so it's like, she's actually like this serial killer that then blackmails somebody else into like confessing to it. Yeah. And so that just became a really fascinating thing to try to watch. And then,
did you ever get into X-Files?
Love X-Files.
Oh man, yeah. So I haven't seen, because I don't, which I think I can watch it on Hulu. Because I just stream everything. But there's a new season that just started, right?
I heard that.
Yeah. So they brought Scully and
Mulder.
Mulder Duchovny, my man, which looks totally different these days, but still looks good. They brought them back, and they did like a little 6-episode run or something a couple years ago.
I remember that.
So good, man. I got into it. Here's what's good to do. Go on like Wikipedia or somewhere and pull that, because I mean you can get on Netflix and just like go right down or whatever the list of just the Alien plot line, and just like, I mean, I like the Monsters of the Week, don't get me wrong, but there's a larger plot within the show.
The first time I watched it all within like 5 weeks.
Me too.
Because
that's why there's time, man.
Yeah, exactly. And then Erin had gone out of town, like to see her mom or something, and
I watched it twice.
And but I'm a fan.
Me too, definitely.
So there's definitely hours in the day, and then you just start sending stuff in. Get a lot of rejection letters. Mostly there's like a form rejection letter.
It's like a standardized, like auto reply.
And it's like, thank you so much. It's not right for us right now, or something. It's very polite. And the first time I got one back, I'm like, oh wow. And then I got like 15 more of them, and I'm like, oh, they're all just copying and pasting the same letter.
So do you feel like that you found a niche of things to write about? I mean, it's because you've been published. You've been published more than once. Like
just the one time.
Okay, and this is
still
recently?
Brand new. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, where so you sent me the link, and I'm going to share it over in the description. Like, tell me a little bit, like, was it your 150th submission? Tell me a little bit about what you got published by who. And
it was a little story about a dad at the park, and if anybody that has kids knows this world of at the park with your kids, it's just such a strange environment where there's a bunch of kids around. You can't really parent anyone else's kid. And then you don't know when to jump in. Like sometimes you're trying to just let them learn and sort it out on their own. And then other times you're like, okay, I got to break this up. But then I also can't parent I can't.
You just got to deal with your kid.
I can only like correct my own kid or, and so I take my kids to the park all the time. And there was 2 different things that happened. And I kind of like folded those into this one story.
So you do it from a real.
Yeah. I mean, everything I write about is just my cousin or my sister or an old boss, or like, it's just.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's great as a source of inspiration. Like I've thought a lot about that. It's like you take someone like an L. Ron Hubbard, for example, that they're just pulling it out of their mind and made it up.
Yeah.
Versus someone that's basing it loosely or exactly on real world experience and their own subjective reality. It's interesting to see someone that draws from their self versus that guy making everything
up. As much as
up.
I believe in fiction, there really is no fiction. Like everything is an example, and that's what I love about fiction, is that it's a way to talk about the real world without having all the arguments.
Yeah.
So, because if you start talking about the real world, then everybody kind of has their spin on the facts. And it's like, well, there weren't weapons of mass destruction, and we didn't know, and da-da-da, and this, and like, and those people over there, and they, and it becomes this whole like, well, my tribe says this about the facts, and my tribe says that about the facts.
So, real quick, you're saying that you believe in a conspiracy?
No,
that there's no. Because that is an actual conspiracy.
Right. So I'm saying that it's so easy to get bogged down in that sort of thing.
Ancient aliens, all of it.
Yeah. And so, like, you can't have a discussion about the Iraq War or the cultural differences, like all, because very quickly, and I'm trying very hard to not take a side or anything.
Well, I mean, just as a historian, I feel exactly what you're laying down.
Yes, because very quickly it's like, oh, I've got these 6 books that say this over here, and I've got this that says this about, and so, but if you can talk about it like Ender's Game, it's like a group of people going to attack a different race of being that they don't really understand and that operates in the universe a totally different way than they do.
Did you watch that movie Bright on Netflix? That's kind of the same deal.
No.
It's like humans live in this day
Is
and
that the
age
Will
of
Smith
society with orcs and
Okay.
elves.
Interesting.
And there's magic wands.
I love it. I'm for it.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I watched it and I kind of fell asleep about an hour in, but I woke up and caught the end of it. And I was like, man, I'm still into it. I missed like 45 minutes.
So, yeah, instead of having like the argument about what actually happened or what should have happened, you can just have like a more philosophical discussion about Ender's world and the game. He didn't know what he was doing, and like he was just a kid, and the humans misunderstood the buggers, and there's nothing to argue about. You can just talk about
It's an open forum.
the principles of, is it okay to send kids and do stuff like that they don't understand. So that's what I love about fiction, and that's why I think storytelling is so great. And even just like, I don't think it ever gets more complicated than, Pinocchio or The Emperor's New Clothes, because it's this, with kids, it's hard to say like, hey, don't lie. But it's like, but why not? Because a lot of times it gets me out of trouble.
Yeah.
Like,
there's
right?
benefits here, Dan.
Yeah, like, and it, like, lying's such a natural thing for a child to do, and it's hard to explain that. Well, when you lie, it affects other people, and then and at some point, you're gonna really need me to trust you, because something's gonna be broken, and you didn't do it, but it's really gonna look like you did it, and I'm gonna be able to look you in the eye and say, did you break this? And you're going to need me to believe you when you say, no, I didn't, and I don't know what happened. But that's a complex thing for like a 5-year-old to grasp. So there's like...
How old are your kids now, by the way?
I have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Wow.
Not quite 4. He's almost 4.
Yeah, he's growing up then.
Very
I haven't
fast.
seen any
He's
pictures of him
huge.
recently,
He's
but like
ginormous.
when we... back before Opal Mays closed and then reopened, and it's not as good as they once were. But they're still good.
I haven't made it to the new one.
He came and ate lunch
I
with us a
remember
couple
that,
of times,
yeah.
and he was just bouncing on your knee
Yep.
at the time.
Yeah, he was just devouring carrots and stuff.
Yeah, cutie.
Yeah, but so it's like you telling the story about, well, there was this puppet, and he wanted to be a real boy. He wanted to be like a big boy, but he kind of liked to lie, and every time he lied, his nose growed. Isn't that weird? Isn't that crazy? And so you don't have to have the like, yeah, I know you lied and you got out of the one thing and then that was okay. Like, it's then the kid can like understand the difference between lying and how it affects other people, and it's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that it's
certainly
the same thing. And some things that are hard to understand even as adults are hard to think about. Even like Jesus told stories all the time. He's talking about, like the kingdom. He would say the kingdom of heaven is like, because that's a hard thing. Is like, is the afterlife? Is there an afterlife? What happens after we die? Is it, and does God love people, or is like, why does God let bad things happen? And then he's like, yeah, it's hard to understand. It's kind of like.
Yeah, how do you get a mental... Isn't it funny that while you're on that, I've been thinking about this recently, like how people develop a mental image of God is like a Father Time type character that is definitely almost always male in gender.
Yeah. And so Jesus is like, it's kind of hard to think about, but it's kind of like as if a son ran away and then his parents still welcomed him back in, even though he didn't deserve it. That's how much God loves us. It's kind of like that. So that, like, he's not making like an official like position on it.
So like the parable of the prodigal son, do you think that's where, like,
he's just like telling a story. He's like, I just want you to think about how much God loves humans. Like if you had a son that ran away, you would be mad at him, wouldn't you? If they wanted their inheritance, and you're kind of like, yeah, man, that's
I never
crazy.
even thought about that. Jesus was doing parables as kind of a metaphorical, instead of, hey, here's a story I know about.
Yeah, so like he just starts making up these stories, and it helps you think about something in a different way.
Yeah, for real. There's always a lesson.
That's like hard to think about, because like forgiveness is not a natural thing to do. Yeah. It's like that's not a natural thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But it's powerful if you can get to that place in your heart to release someone from what they deserve, and they do deserve it. It doesn't mean that what they did wasn't bad. It was bad, and they do deserve something to happen back to them.
So that's honestly like what you're putting this in context is totally different than I would have perceived. You know, you hear the word fiction, you're like, well, X-Files.
Yeah.
You know, like you're like, oh, it's out there. We're in the outer limits, the Twilight Zone. Yeah. That's, you know, almost like fantasy. But versus practicality, because what we're talking about is practicality. It's like no one hears a metaphor or an analogy or, you know, a comparison that is like a parable or something and is like, oh, well, I can't believe that. It's fake.
Yeah. Right. And it's like, you don't have to believe it. I'm not saying it's real. I'm saying if you're a tortoise and you're a hare, even if you're the hare, if you're lazy, you're not going to win the race. Like, I understand that. As an 8-year-old, I understand that the hare's faster, he has the advantage, and he wasted it. Yeah. So just because I'm smart doesn't mean I can take it easy in class.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're like you get these different points of view on these things now that you're an adult going through these like shows and stuff with your kids versus when you were a kid?
Well, and that's what's so brilliant about it is it's almost like an unconscious understanding of the principle that like I can articulate it in a way now that I couldn't have as a 10-year-old, but it's something clicks with you when you see that story. Or when that moment happens,
it's almost like there's a hook.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah.
Fascinating, man. So, what was the title of your story? Where could we check it out?
So it's called The Park Rangers, which is like a pun. I love puns because it's like these two dads at the park, and they're kind of like nice. You know, they're kind of like trying to see who's in control of the playground.
Very nice way to bring it into the real world.
Yeah, I made that change last minute, like just before I hit send. I was like, let me change the name of this. So I think it worked out. I was kind of nervous that it's a little hokey. Like it's kind of hokey, but it's okay. It's on like an online magazine called New Pop Lit. So it's just newpoplit.com. Excellent. So it's like pop literature.
Very nice. Did you, I mean, where did, like when you go, I went to Books A Million the other day and I almost bought a Bob Ross pop, but I didn't and I regret it. Mm-hmm. There's two different ones to choose from. Yeah, with the little square. I've got one at the gym.
I actually have the Bob Ross one. Penelope has it.
Yeah. One of my kids at the gym, she's been with us for like 4 or 5 years. She's only like 10 now. Uh-huh. So cute. And she dressed up as Bob Ross for Halloween.
That is
and like did beautiful. The little beard and the afro. And like she loves to paint.
The Bob Ross pop, his afro from the top looks like an avocado. So it would be in my cup holder in my car. And I would think, who left an avocado? Oh, gosh. So then we started to call it Bobacado.
There you go. I'm definitely going to, if I go back and get more pants from Old Navy at 75% off, I'm definitely going back next door to get.
If you find a pair of jeans that fit right, you get more of them.
Yeah, dude, these were like, these are less than $10, bro. Mm-hmm. And then a completely unrelated incident, I go to like TJ Maxx or Ross or somewhere and score these corduroy pants for $10 and $7. Mm-hmm. Like I've been waiting my whole life for these kind of pants deals.
I have a pair of jeans. I buy the same ones like every 18 months. I buy like 2 pairs of them.
I did that with Levi's forever, but Levi's are so expensive now, man. Like
I wait till they go on like clearance. So I buy like the 2 years ago version. So I'm like just now starting to get the stretchy spandex ones, even though they've been out for a long time. And I'm like, wow, these are awesome.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Well, how did you? So while I was in Books A Million, I'm like, I love writing as well, and I have goals. I mean, I wrote almost 150 page master's thesis, and I want to eventually get my PhD, and I'll have to do a dissertation if I do that. And my goals for publication have to do more with academia and history or martial arts than fiction. But it's like, I was in Books A Million, and I'm looking around, and I appreciate the heck out of the store. But Barnes and Nobles and Books A Million and places like that do to kind of like that, so the Spotify version of that.
I know.
You know, it's like, well, is there even going to be like how do authors in today's day and age that are starting off, like maybe yourself, maybe you're, you know, maybe that's not your goal, but how do they, I mean, you get distribution into these bookstores and actually make money without all your products sitting on the shelves and not selling?
I don't really know how any of that works. I'm kind of working on it. I think it might become a novel. I'm not sure.
I couldn't even figure out how to get my podcast into iTunes until like yesterday.
I don't know enough about that whole thing. I know that Eli has a novel that has been kind of like shopped around and stuff, but I try to just be supportive because I just think he's amazing. So I don't really like, I try to keep from forcing him to teach me.
Yeah.
But I do think there is an appetite for good storytelling still.
That is the guy I mentioned to you, and I might throw up a video before after we get done, before you leave. This Todd Snyder, he is a storyteller. He is a folk. So he's like an Arlo Guthrie.
Yeah,
that's the only person that I've heard a comparison drawn from. That like he had this deal, and we told this on the podcast, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. He does this cover of "This Land Is Your Land," but it's so good. And he's like, you know those
great song.
You know those signs that say "No trespassing." And he's like, well, and on one side they say no trespassing, and on the other side, they don't say anything at all. And that side was made for you and me.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, just that. That's and excellent. He did, This Will Be Unbroken, that Johnny Cash, June Carter, like an old gospel cover they did. So good, man. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. I knew who he was. He's in another band called Hardworking Americans, and I was charting him, and my buddy went and saw him the weekend before in Little Rock and met him. Like, we just put the podcast up today if you want to listen to it. It's probably one of the better ones that, like, the first few we put out, the audio, we're still getting, even having done tests, and then the first couple, the videos really worked out. Like, I had Jerry Bruckheimer's nephew come over and light this room for me.
Great.
He's going to be a guest as soon as he stops ducking me. No, he's I'm like, all right, I won't bring up this story or that story or your Uncle Jerry.
Well, even in academia and nonfiction, it's still great when it's storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, that's what keeps it interesting. Like I just read
that. I guarantee you, me as an audience member, that was just luring me in more. Between songs, he told all these stories, and then there's a video out there that I want to that I'll probably show you. The one that comes to mind I want to show everybody right now is him talking about Garth Brooks plagiarizing one of his songs.
Wow!
And how they it's like, you ever heard the Garth Brooks song "Beer Run"?
I don't.
Well, he has a song called "Beer Run," and Todd Snyder had that song first.
Really?
And it's BEERUN, Beer Run.
Okay.
And he wrote it a long time ago, but there became this big dispute where Todd's the manager's like, hey, Garth Brooks and 6 other guys wrote this song called Beer Run. It's your song. They sound a lot alike, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention. He's like, man, do I have to come to town? Because I just really want songwriting to be something that doesn't happen in town. Yeah, you know, he's saying he lives in Nashville.
To be a business.
Yeah,
I just want to write songs.
Some other people he's really close linked with is Chris Stapleton, Shooter Jennings, Sturgill Simpson, like all these people. And then my favorite band, Widespread Panic. 2 of the members of Widespread Panic are in Hardworking Americans with Todd Snyder. So. Just super unique dude, and like really the first time I ever delved into his music was seeing him live play his set list, and I was just like, we had they put it's at you ever been to George's for a show? George's Majestic Lounge.
No.
It's in Fayetteville. It's on Dixon, and they bring some quality stuff through there. I've seen some drive-by truckers there. Todd Snyder. I saw the guitar player from Widespread Panic, Jimmy Herring. I bet you'd have some appreciation for this guy. Panic. He learned a 300 song. Like the Panic's guitar player, Michael Hauser, died in '02, and he learned a 300 song catalog of Widespread Panic to be able to play all their covers, all their originals, because Panic had been around since '87. Then. But before that, he played with the Dead. That's another 300 song catalog. And how do you fit 600 songs in your head?
Yeah.
I mean, like thinking back to you flipping through the fake books, it's like, even though you're like, but just to be able, you had to have some of those songs like lyrically, melodically, somewhat.
Well, yeah, that I could do any of the Beatles songs because I had heard them.
Yes.
So
but how many Beatles songs are there?
I think like 180.
Yeah, so that's impressive, right? So maybe that's like when things like that, like, and I know you don't probably know every word to every song, or you might,
right?
But
well,
the 150
if they're in front of me,
fake it to make it, man. Yeah, that's Jimmy Herring. He came through and played it, and it was all instrumental thing. It's called The Invisible Whip, and he's Widespread Panic's guitar player. So he's putting out solo albums too. You ever hear of a guy named Colonel Bruce Hampton?
No.
Jimmy Herring played guitar in a band with him for years and years and years before that. And this guy, in my view, and I said this recently, and it's no offense to Eric Clapton, is the greatest living guitar player.
Wow.
Because the excuse I use is Eric Clapton has done nothing in my lifetime that would lead me to appreciate him as the greatest living guitar player.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's fair.
I mean, he has done some stuff, but not like when I'm seeing him when he's like in the 70s with this long hair and his mustache with cream, being like, this little blues lick here is the one I like to play. That's greatest guitar player Eric Clapton. And he is definitely a greatest living guitar player. But Jimmy Herring is touring and did 2 albums this summer, is putting out albums with Widespread Panic, and is played with all of these bands.
Yeah.
So
I definitely love, we talked about music. The thing that I think might turn into a novel is all based on the Secret Sisters' last album.
Really?
Yeah. So I listened to the Secret Sisters' newest album over and over, just so many times. I don't think since Coldplay's first album I listened to the same album so much.
Hey, well, you should get a topic in order for a music Unraveled, man. Because I would love to have you on to just talk about one of your favorite bands. That would be fun. An album. Like I think, didn't you say you and Aaron had recently gone through something with like Bob Dylan albums, or maybe that was a couple years ago, like where you'd like maybe you'd listened to or reviewed, or I don't know. I can't remember, but you were telling me that you'd done something with all of these different albums, or maybe you'd created a collage. I don't know what it was, but
so anyway, I listened to this Secret System album like 100 times, and then it finally just hit me. This is one story. Like, this is all
like a concept album,
but I don't think they meant for it to be. I think that's just what was going on in their life at the time. And so there's like definitely like the action rises.
Plot
There's
arcs.
a very dramatic climax, and then they kind of like finish out. I'm like, I wonder if I could just fill in those gaps. I wonder if I could just like just guess at what the circumstances were. And I obviously don't think I'm close. Like I'm not trying to actually know what went on in their life, but I'm like, this is a fun story. I wonder if I could just like tell the whole story, and I'm just going to make it up, so it's not going to be their story, but it's a fun thing to do.
Well, I mean, are you a big fan of Star Wars?
Yes.
So, old canon or new canon? Exactly, right? That's the same thing. People are rewriting it, not accepting it. There's a lot of division.
I don't understand the value of trying to make Star Wars holy scripture.
I know, right?
I just enjoy it.
Well,
it's so fun.
I like the concept
new movie's
that
so
a
fun.
fan like yourself can do whatever they want.
Right.
Just make up a story.
It's fine. Yeah. I think I think there is a danger in saying that every back of the envelope comic strip that somebody sketched out counts as canon. Like, I don't think,
especially the stuff on Netflix is new canon.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of people are like. These cartoons on Netflix, they tell this story, and then that continues here in this book, which just came out. Yeah,
I think it's fine. Like, just have fun. It's just fun. Like,
I like consuming all of it because being like, so the remastered trilogy of the first trilogy came out in like the later 90s, early 2000s when I was a teenager, like 13 and stuff, and I'm like, oh man, that's when I became a fan.
Yeah.
But I never had any problem with like, oh, so you put Qui-Gon Jinn at the end, like, big deal in Return of the Jedi, like how they made the.
I know. Well, and what's funny is like you don't want creativity by committee. You don't want Disney saying, "Oh, everybody's mad that they did this. Let's not do that anymore." Like, that's the exact thing that you don't want to happen. The guy wrote it.
Yeah,
he believed in it. He made the movie he wanted. I think people just need to relax.
Yeah, Well, do you think a lot of people are saying this, that like, and I don't. I think that the director on like the Last Jedi did a great job. Ryan Wilson, Ryan Johnson. I keep calling him my last name.
Ryan Wilson that's the guy from The Office, right?
Yeah, that's why I keep doing that. I was like, why do I keep calling him my last name? Yeah. His last name is John. Well, S-O-N at the end of the name. Johnson Wilson. Okay. I'm Wilson Johnson. 2 last names. Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it, and I really enjoyed it. But some people are like, well, Disney, they just have too much of a cookie cutter. And even Joe Rogan was like, it's all of these like Asians, and it's like, there has to be a certain percentage of ethnic minorities playing these main characters just to be politically. And I was like, I didn't feel that way at all.
I didn't notice it. Yeah,
I didn't. I did not notice that.
I sat in the theater. I enjoyed my popcorn. I loved the movie. I came out. I was excited, and then I just started reading stuff on the internet. And
and then I got on Facebook, and people were just crapping all over it.
And I'm like, get over yourself, whatever.
Oh, did you see the director just school people on Twitter the other day?
Yes,
I saw
a link to it. I saw a link to them.
Yeah, Ryan Johnson. Yeah, I thought he did a good job, and I'm excited to see what J.J. Abrams does with the next one, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Well, so Park Rangers, newpoplit.com, online magazine. Anything else you want to plug on your short story, or you got anything coming up, or you got some new pieces you've submitted?
I'm working. So the Secret System album, I'm going through and I'm writing one short story for each song.
Interesting.
And I think when it's done, it'll all work as like one long thing. But I am, as I go, submitting them. And I want them also to be standalone short stories.
I like, for example, we did that Todd Snyder podcast, and I tagged Todd Snyder in it. And if he shares it, the podcast can get a lot of views. Mm-hmm. Likewise, it's like, that's one thing. It's like with some of the stuff I'm doing, I'm always going to, like we do Drive By Truckers today, I'm going to be posting that in groups and tagging them in it. And if they share it, then it's really going to get the word out. I would say likewise for what you're doing with your short stories, especially if you're going to kind of like piggyback a narrative like that. I that's a really creative idea. It's kind of like an album review, but
I just love the Secret Sisters so much. I just really do love this album.
I'm gonna have to pull you and put together a playlist or something. Or what's the name of that album?
The album's called "You Don't Own Me Anymore."
Right on.
And so I'm trying to raise my daughter, and I understand the world in a different way now, watching a little girl grow up with a different perspective on the world than I had as a little boy. And then this album came out, and it's called "You Don't Own Me Anymore." And it just the season of life I was in, it just really connected with me of like, hey, you don't own her. She's her own person. She doesn't have to do what you think a little girl, or and it just really connected with me. And one of the things from the Stephen King book is write what you know. And so it's like, it's set in the South, and it's about this thing that I'm really wrestling with internally, and like having to change the, like, the way I think about things of like, wow, the world really was kind of set up for me as a man. I did have a few extra advantages.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated to hear people talk about, for, I guess, lack of a better word, because I kind of hate categorizing these things, because I don't want to proliferate division, but like gender equality or gender differences.
Yeah.
And I know it's a very hot button issue right now. Yeah. It's like almost.
That's why I want to write a short story about it.
You're in the zeitgeist.
Because I can tell. Yeah, then we can talk about it that way instead of.
I think that plays too. It's like, I'm like, well, I already watched King Arthur. I might as well do a podcast on it because I'm inspired by it. I'm amped about it right now, and it's just like it's almost a historian in me too, because it's giving me a way to archive and record experiences as they were happening. Like, so you're speaking of concept albums, if that's loosely what you categorize the Secret Sisters as. Were you big? Did you ever get into Pink Floyd?
I went through a brief Pink Floyd phase in college, which I think everyone does.
Yeah. I have gotten way into Floyd as an adult and saw Roger Waters in concert twice in 2017. And man, but then I got into the differences between Waters and Gilmour and Roger Waters' concept album approach on like Animals. Mm-hmm. Like the Animals album. I'm fascinated by what he did with that. Yeah. Because really his tour and how he did his concert, which all the videos are online, but it was like a concept concert, which was all anti-Trump, by the way. And I like, not taking any sides but like, it was a very politically charged and to be having, like, we saw him in Nashville and Tulsa.
Mm-hmm. And again, I don't want to. I believe that he's sincere in what he was ranting about, but when you do it that way, it's so quickly people feel like they have to take sides.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Neil Young went through the same thing.
Yeah, because my cousin is is on this part of it, and my uncle did this part of it. So like you have to kind of group up that way. But if you just tell a story, people could just hear the story and try to comprehend it as fiction and not argue about the facts of it.
See, that's fun. Like, cause like when Roger Waters when he wrote Animals, it's like songs like Dogs and Pigs and 3 different ones. Those are all politically charged stories about the political elite corrupting society and corrupt politicians.
Yeah, and I have very, very strong political views, but I've just found that it's very rarely helpful.
No, it doesn't foster any friendships.
To rant and rave about it. It's not ever convincing to people. Rare, just hardly ever. Or I'm not smart enough to do it in a way that's convincing to people. Yeah,
I think having creative outlets and forums, like what we're talking about, it's almost like I was saying with I mean, I'd been waiting probably 10 years to deliver that first college lecture, man, which I just did Tuesday.
That's awesome.
Because they canceled my first class because of cold weather.
Boo.
Yeah, they're like, we're not open until 10. My class is at 8. Then Thursday it was like, here, tell them about the syllabus that we made for you. So it was all housekeeping stuff. And then, so like Tuesday, I'm like, I'm just going to sweep in here and assassinate you guys with this Mongol information. And like several of the students afterwards and the next day, like one of them came to my office and was asking me about a paper topic. And she's like, I just really love how you were talking about these facts that made me think about like the bigger picture instead of just what the book says. And I'm like, yeah, your book gives like 3 pages on the Mongols and 6 in a bigger context of how they related to and I'm like,
but once you know the story.
Well, and I interwove women into the story a lot and talked about like the amount of rape that went on, sadly. And and a couple of the stories of how that went on and Genghis Khan's wives.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't know much about that part of history.
Man, let me give you a recommendation right here, because a lot of what I did on my lecture notes I took from Dan Carlin's Hardcore History.
Love Dan Carlin.
Dude, have you listened to Wrath of the Khans?
No, I've done
each
World
one's about
War
an hour and a
I
half. Oh, dude, Blueprint for Armageddon. That is such a good series. When he talks about the German army marching through like Poland all day.
I mean, you talk about sincerity. I tell people that all the time, that sincerity is what's convincing. I can't imagine what it's like to be in the studio with him. He's like going through that, and he's just so.
When he reads the quotes, man. Okay. What's
the name of the Genghis Khan series?
Wrath of the Khans. Okay. It's like a 5-parter, but like, on the Blueprint for Armageddon, I believe like each one of them is like 3 hours long or something.
Yeah.
On this one, they're like an hour and a half. Maybe the longest one's 2 hours. So like I listened to all of them a couple years ago, like driving to Vegas or something, and I went back and re-listened to all of them.
That's great.
There's a lot of stuff that I did not bring to class. I mean, a survey gen ed world history course, I've already gone above and beyond on that topic.
Yeah.
But I was like, I really pretexted it. I was like, and them going out of power is what enables the Renaissance. The Crusades is what enables them to take over in the Middle East. And, then you have the rise of Genoa, which is where Columbus is from. And the Mongols can't protect the Silk Roads anymore. They protected the Silk Roads. So European monarchs no longer can have merchants trade across land. Therefore, that is why Columbus set sail to try and find a trade route to India or Asia.
Unbelievable.
Like there is a bigger, broader connection there, and I'm like, I didn't even really get that, and I'm like, that's because most of the survey books, they give you three pages on a major.
And it's like they try to do like the interesting facts or like the little like cereal box factoids, and it's like,
I know, it's like Genghis Khan invaded northern China, and then went down into western China, and then his son invaded into Europe, and then his grandson did this and met Marco Polo. Like and then all of them together created this thing called the Mongol Peace. And when that ceased to exist, because after Kublai Khan, blah blah blah, and I was just like, wow, that's fascinating. And like Dan Carlin made a lot of those connections for me, but I still had to wrap it back. The book is really good with like good and bad. Like, man, revisionist history can get to a point. There's nothing about rape in or the Holocaust. There's 20 to 50 million deaths attributed to Genghis Khan's reign.
Wow.
Just his reign, not to count his son Ogedai Khan and his grandson. And there was several rulers between those people, because luckily Kublai Khan was able to pull it all together and actually became a Chinese emperor.
Really?
Yeah. But man, it's like, it's just fascinating to study that and to think like, okay, so at some point historians revised this down to this
palatable.
There's no disgusting stories here. There's no violence. There's no rape. There's no disease. It's like they talk about the Black Death and everything, but that was another thing, is Black Death spread all along those routes, and that was another thing that it's like led to them not being able to control, and they would protect caravans. I have a theory. Genghis Khan once sent a caravan to a guy, the Khwarezmian Shah, and was like, hey, we're both the best, there's no need for us to fight, because I will take you over super quick, let's just coexist. And that guy stole the caravan as soon as it got there and took it. It was like one of his governors or something. And he's like, sends an envoy. He's like, hey, just give me the governor and I will let you live. And the Shah's like, no, I knew this happened. I'm cool with it. And in 3 years, they took over the entire Middle East.
Wow.
And the way in which they fought, there's a story I told where like 60,000 women, ages, and I might be off on the number of women, I'd have to look at my lecture notes, were rallied up in this governor's city that had stolen the caravan. And listen to Dan Carlin read about like what the Khan said when he got there. It's like, it was mine about the loot. It's like, you will return every bit of it. And he said the people that it got dispersed to are just bringing it back.
Wow.
He lets they kill every military person there. They round up all the women ages 7 and above, marry them on the spot to the Mongol troopers, where they consummate their marriage in the town square in front of their neighbors, friends, and family, in which several of the younger girls die.
Wow.
Marriage.
Wow.
Super. I mean, So you read that and you go read the survey, a couple of pages in the World Civ book, you're like...
You don't get that.
So you get a compare and contrast that really brings it in, and that's what I'm trying to bring to the class, and it may be a little more upper level, but when they go to writing papers and stuff, they got to do a paper for the course, which I'm just like, hey, you could review Marco Polo on Netflix, you could review Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Mm-hmm. Let's be creative with this. I'm giving you a list of as many topics as there are students in this class.
Yeah.
Pick what you want to do.
That's fun.
So yeah, but it's exciting. It's a cool experience, and luckily I only have one class. If I had 5 classes, I'd be dealing with like 200 students, and wouldn't be able to like
be so personal.
Yeah, so like I literally talked to 5 students before and after class, like coming, and they gave me an office too.
Wow.
Yeah, like right next to my classroom.
Excellent.
Has nothing in it but a computer.
Stand-up desks that goes up and down.
No,
you should.
I know. You're the one who turned me on to that.
Oh, I forgot.
I will get one of those eventually.
It's pretty awesome.
I want to, we've got an office over here on the other end of the house, and then this room across the hall. Like, and I'm going to evolve this room up a little bit more. I've got some.
Do you guys have a bedroom here, or
no?
Just
sleep on the couch.
Okay.
We used all of our rooms.
Like every room.
Yeah, it's like I told Clark there was nothing going on in these 2 rooms, and I told Corey I was going to get a music room out of this house deal, and she's like, oh, okay, and then I was like, and I'm going to need this room for a podcast studio.
Wow, you're brave.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's a friend of mine at the gym. He was on the first Life Unraveled, where all we talked about was Star Wars. We're going to talk about national parks, but next time. He's a sociology professor at U of O, actually. But I was like telling him all this. I'm like, man, how do you like secure rooms in your house? Like from your wife. Like she doesn't want me in there, and doesn't want my stuff in there. And he's like, dude, I have 4 kids. Like,
right. Yeah,
you don't. I gave that up a long time ago.
No, you're right.
Like I have my office at the school.
That's why I wear plain t-shirts every day.
His office at school, he's like all his action figures and stuff. Or when I moved all my action figures out of, I moved all my toys and stuff from when I was a kid out of my mom and dad's, and we moved in here. I just went through everything and like gave him all my Spider-Mans and all my, and he's like, thanks, dude.
That's awesome.
He's a big kid with that sort of stuff.
U of O is so awesome right now.
What's that?
The U of O.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I know some people that are adjuncting at like U of O, Morrilton, and Tech.
Really?
And I doubt, I don't know, I may do something like that. I kind of like the idea of getting plugged in with Morrilton a little more. Because they don't do a lot of online courses now, but they're starting. So I'd like to be able to offer a couple of online U.S. History 2s, a couple of in-class Civs or U.S. Histories. And
I just read the Abraham Lincoln book, the Team of Rivals. So good.
Man, did you watch the Daniel Day-Lewis movie?
I haven't
came out
seen
a couple years ago. It's really good.
I read the book.
It's I mean, like any Daniel Day-Lewis movie, it's got elements that make it great, and they're pretty much all related to him. But the cinematography's good. It's long and drawn out, obviously, but it's a great period piece. I really enjoyed it. Lincoln is what I think it's called. We saw it in theaters. So I remember we were like, it was pretty packed, and we had to sit like almost on the front row, but it was like on one of those sides that there's just like a few seats, like 3 seats or something. And we were just like,
it's funny how your brain adjusts though, right?
I know. Yeah.
Like 9 minutes in, you're just like, your brain just goes,
I remember when I was a kid watching things, in widescreen with the black at the bottom and then the top, like old westerns and stuff.
The TVs were
on.
square.
Yeah.
And they would show movies on TV. It was widescreen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still I have to, one thing I've been learning is like the elements of Photoshop on getting things to appear is I need them to appear on a mobile device versus a desktop versus a desktop laptop being the same thing. But that's certain pixelations and resolutions and sizes. It's a pain. But I will say this, on our podcast today, yours will be one of the, and I'll go back and do this on others, but I've got a template in Photoshop that we made up. I'll show it to you real quick.
I saw that. Nice. Yeah, you texted me.
I texted that to you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So like that'll be what people see when they hop on here. It's 16 text messages. Wow. Yeah, you ever listen to Joe Bonamassa?
Man, I'm so far out of because I let Penelope choose the music in the car a lot and stuff, and so I love for people to send me new bands and stuff to listen to, but my running buddy right now is like my lifeline for music, and he sends me all the cool stuff. But
yeah,
I don't
see. I have a buddy like that. He's actually just texted me. He's in Mexico seeing Widespread Panic, which we saw last year for 4 days at the Hard Rock Casino Resort, where you can rent guitars and stuff. That's actually included. I did that when I was there. Like you can go to a recording studio, the Hard Rock, and what is? Oh man, I just went blank. What is that big tourist town? Cancun. It's like 30 minutes down the coast from Cancun.
Or Cozumel?
It's close to Cozumel. You can see Cozumel, the lights from Cozumel, when you're at this Hard Rock Resort. And but he's always he told me about Joe Bonamassa. Joe Bonamassa was playing guitar with B.B. King when he was 11 years old. He's like a Derek Trucks, a child prodigy. And we just saw him in concert maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. He came to Verizon and only sold the lower bowl. Like he didn't sell any upper deck seats. It was like an intimate, like I've never even seen someone. Cool. There's a limited number of tickets that went out. Like he's like, no, it's a smaller show. Did 2 Zeppelin covers, but he is something else as a guitar player. Definitely one of the best out there. And I think at Colby, you know Colby Talley?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from Clarksville.
Yeah.
Or Allie. I feel like, I kind of feel sketchy about talking about people's names on the podcast.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I don't know what the...
But Colby's name comes up like every podcast because I hang out with him all the time.
That's
he's
funny.
Texted me. He's been on the podcast. He said, we went to high school together, but became like really good buddies within the last 5 years or so. Like, yeah, he's like probably one of my best friends. He's one of my best friends. Like we hang out more than anybody I hang out with and have more mutual interests, go see shows together. He started doing some jiu-jitsu with me. He's a great dude. And I was joking about him yesterday. We were doing a podcast and we were talking about Game of Thrones theories, which we ended up talking about everything. And, I was like, he started going off. He's like, now, what do you think about, he was talking about history. What do you think about this? And like, how did they blah, 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 these stones and these cuttings? And he starts going this, he's like, aliens, bro. and like starts kind of getting off on that when which I was riffing with him and we were having fun with it. And I told my history class that yesterday because something came up and I was like, how do you think they did this?
Yeah.
Aliens.
Yep.
And I was like, and I told him that story. They didn't. And, but it's, we mentioned Ancient Aliens earlier, how that stuff gets out there. And ironically, and I never knew this until last year, there is a very big conspiracy out there.
About?
That there are no nuclear bombs.
Ever?
I
don't know that one. I haven't heard that
one. Here's the premise.
Okay. I do love conspiracy theories.
Nagasaki and Hiroshima were firebombed, not atomic bombed.
Okay.
And then after that, your major powers, Soviet Union, China, and the United States, all used the idea of the bomb as a propaganda power play to, think about duck and cover and all of this. It was like almost like the doomsday version of the space race.
Okay.
So if you've heard the whole space race, it being like a Cold War conspiracy that we said we went to the moon just because the Soviet Union, we had to beat
just because they said they wanted to.
So there's a B string conspiracy theory on the NASA and the space mission, the Apollos, and us going to the moon that says we didn't go when we said we went in 1969. We went later in like 1980.
Huh.
But the thing is like there's all these photo evidence like at the blast center in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It's like, why is this wall still here? Why is this brick wall within a 1 mile radius still standing of the blast center? And then they show pictures of Tokyo after being firebombed. It looks really similar. Firebombing is something that came along in World War II that was devastating.
Yeah.
The firebombings in Tokyo, if you read about that, are devastating. And let me pretext this. I'm not saying that I believe that atomic bombs and nuclear bombs don't exist. It's official. Yeah, because I don't know, I might get fired from my job for proliferating such information. But I'm always fascinated, like, to view both sides of that. It's like people are saying that this is a thing, and I know enough about the Cold War to kind of look into it enough.
Okay, so
anyway, go ahead.
I love conspiracy theories because I think they're fun, and I love the story of it. But for me, it always comes back to, I just don't think they're that smart.
Yeah, like, I agree. I agree. Here's the thing, like, when it comes to conspiracies, people are a master of none, usually. It's like they know everything about JFK and nothing about anything else. Or everything about NASA.
I just don't think... I don't mean the people aren't that smart. I mean they.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that there's not some...
Like, the smartest people are, like, building electric cars right now and launching private space companies. You know what I mean? So... I don't think there's like this other secret group of people that are like so much smarter than us. That, like,
so on record, you don't believe in the psychic vampire,
correct,
global elite,
yes, like
shape-shifting reptilians.
They can't even like figure out whether or not there's like a Yahoo Mail or a government email account, and
that's
like
what we're dealing with. These
are the same group of people that are gonna secretly kill John F. Kennedy and hide it from all of us.
Yeah,
I love the story. I love in X-Files. I love Cancer Man.
Oh, yeah, that plot is the best.
But in like the real world, like just like the pragmatist of me is like, come on, like
yeah, it's so
it would be so complex. It would be so complex, and like not one person, like it.
No, I'm totally with you. That's the disconnect for me as well. Is like just as a history buff.
Yeah.
Is like, it's almost like, can you really give that much credit?
Yeah, to like 3 seconds of a video from 100 feet away at the wrong angle.
Here's some stuff that I do buy into though, that I've heard this and it makes a lot of sense. Like I'd like look at things commonsensical stuff. So have you heard of the like the online group Anonymous? It's like the V for Vendetta mask.
Yeah.
The conspiracy is that's our CIA.
The whole thing, that whole thing is?
And it's more exclusively, it's the positive factions in the CIA.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes some sense. I'm like, wow. Somebody really laid it out there. And I was like, and sadly, I might have heard Alex Jones say that. I don't remember. But yeah, that guy's out there like a planet, man.
Really?
But at the same time, he's been right on a few things like Bohemian Grove. I don't know if you've ever looked into anything with Bohemian Grove.
I don't know what that is.
Well, let me bring you into that real quick. That is a place right outside of San Francisco where the political elite.
Can we get some tinfoil hats in
here?
Yeah.
We shouldn't be recording this. Well, so Richard Nixon writes in his diary that the turning point of his political career before he, got into the Watergate thing and caused our first unelected vice president to become president of the United States. Because his VP that he got elected with his second term in office got impeached or had to resign. So he had somebody else become his VP who, when he leaves Watergate, that guy becomes president of the United States. So, and I can't ever remember if it's Carter or Ford because I stopped paying attention until Reagan because it got real boring there after 1975. No Vietnam War, NSA is coming in. Like I just focus on different parts of history than Carter and Ford, but I think it was Jimmy Carter. I can't remember. I always get them backwards.
Reagan's vice president was...
See, I can't. It's Carter, Ford, Reagan, or it's Ford, Carter, Reagan. I can't ever remember.
I think it's Ford.
Yeah.
If so the magic device here would tell us.
Yeah, which we could look it up, but no need to get back on. But so Bohemian Grove, he writes that, and here's the presidents that are pictured at this place.
So this is on the ascension of his career?
This is on the ascension of his career. Like, because he lost a presidential race to John F. Kennedy.
Yes.
So in between that and him coming back in 1968, so like the first, I'm going to do a big series, and I'm going to do one this month. It'll be the very first one. Every month in 2018, I'm going to do a 1968 Unraveled. It's 50 years since 1968. So I'm starting with LBJ's State of the Union address. So because what happened in 1968, Martin Luther King gets assassinated, Robert F. Kennedy gets assassinated, Martin Luther King, and I think he gets assassinated in April, and RFK gets assassinated in June.
Sergeant Pepper comes out.
Yeah, hey, yeah. Well, I've got a whole part I'm doing on like Steppenwolf's Magic Carpet Ride came out in 1968. Wow. So like I break it down by month really, but like his State of the Union's a great. Like I'm just kind of overview that and overview. So it's like I'm calling it 1968 Unraveled, but the first one I'm gonna call The Year the Dream Died. There's a book out there that. Bam.
Look at that.
Really good book, really good read, really thick book, but in graduate school they teach you not to read every bit of it. So
really?
Yeah, it's called skimming.
Oh, but I'm very anti that.
Yeah, I mean I am too, but on books like that.
I do quit books.
There you go.
That's kind of a
yeah. I want to say you maybe even told me about that.
Especially nonfiction books.
Well, this guy has an argument why I'm kind of going into music and television, because I talk about the top 10 shows on TV in 1968, the charts for music. And what's fascinating is he said because of all the horrible stuff going on with the anti-war movement in Vietnam and the Democratic National Convention riots and LBJ not running for re-election and that creating the rise of a political, corrupt administration with Richard Nixon, that Americans during this time focused on more things like music. So like in 1969 you have Woodstock. He makes some cool parallels there. But back to Bohemian Grove.
Thank you. Sorry.
So no, I mean I love telling people this story because it's basically where these people gather in this forest outside San Francisco, and they put on a play of sorts. And this is numerous political elite. I mentioned Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, the Bushes, senior and junior, have all been pictured there. Multiple presidents throughout our time have been pictured there. I know I'm leaving out at least a couple. Senators, politicians, Rockefellers, just global, what you would call global elite, people that they're in the billionaire club, you know, and they are making things happen for the world, or have an influence to some degree. But in effigy during this thing, there's this big owl carved into a redwood.
Okay.
So here's the connection on the owl. Is they believe that this is a weird rendition of in the Old Testament in they worship a god called Moloch.
Okay.
You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
So Moloch is this owl god, and there is it's carved into a redwood, and you can go see it yourself.
Interesting.
And that is interesting. And they have this play where they have. This starts off, this guy goes, "Fools!" And it's just really intense. I mean, it's like watching the Nine Muses.
Yeah.
You know?
The Nine Muses.
Yeah, bro. Remember when...
Dan Stahl.
Remember when... Didn't Luke Carroll drop an apple from the catwalk?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Plus you had that little... You played the little guitar.
Yeah. I was
Renaissance man.
Man, that was great.
That was a great
show.
I was rowing.
Jesse Hill directed that one.
Really?
Yeah. The one with the guitar.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, those were good times. So Moloch, the owl god, gets worshipped by these people basically, and they had this crazy dude in this cloak paddle up, like the play is happening across this little creek of sorts, and this guy paddles up in a boat and hands like this bundle to the people that have been talking on the other side, and they lay it in front of this owl god and set it on fire. You can't really tell what it is, but the speculation is that that's a baby. They're burning an effigy, not an alive baby. So it's just, it's a play.
Sure.
But if you go listen to the stuff they're saying, I mean, it's a very occult-centered event.
So what does this have to do with the president?
Why are future presidents there?
Why do they go to it?
That's what everybody wants to know.
Because obviously they want to wreck airplanes into buildings and then cover it up.
Have you heard of Operation Northwoods?
No.
It is a declassified thing that they approached Eisenhower with, and JFK, the Joint Chiefs did. It was an actual drafted plan where they were talking about flying a drone airplane into Cuba and blowing it up and saying that we had American citizens on board, and then trying to get, this is pre-Bay of Pigs, trying to get Cuban citizens to attack Guantanamo Bay and all of these crazy plans, and JFK was like, you're insane. Like, this is insane. But I mean, here's the thing, the CIA is who came up with the Bay of Pigs. So when you have the rise of intelligence and agencies in this country FBI would be the inception of that. But NSA, CIA, there's a conspiracy out there that NASA is a Cold War era intelligence agency. In 1977, there was a lens NASA had that could read a license plate from 1 mile away.
Yeah.
So these are things that I'm like, well, that's fascinating.
I know but I don't know. It just cracks me up.
It does. I mean, it cracks me up too. Again, I don't talk about these things when I'm lecturing in class.
I think it's fun, and I like the discussion.
It is fun. We're like, especially when you get bored.
There is like a point where you're like, wait, you understand that we're all joking, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm like,
well, see, there's not like on so many things. There's not an actual like primary source. What, like I mentioned the Bohemian Grove thing, because that stands out. Like, I can't, obviously there's no real argument that convinces me that there's no nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
But some people are just like here's another thing. Well, flat Earth.
See, okay, I was just about to mention flat Earth.
Okay, go on.
And here's the thing. This is one of the things with the internet. I don't think that flat Earth began as a real thing. I think it started, and I'm
totally get behind what you're saying.
I think that a group of guys, or not guys, just group of people, like group of bros or whatever, thought it would be funny to act like they believed in a flat Earth because it freaks old people out. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with these kids these days? What are they learning in school? And so then like the more they freak out, the more you like, oh, we're gonna make our own website. We're gonna, like in it. But then what happens is like some people don't actually know, because like when you're 16,
they don't know enough to not know.
Yeah, you're very impressionable, and so like it starts as a joke, and then it becomes like this sliver of people that, it's the same thing that happened with Slender Man, which ended very tragically.
Fascinating. That's an HBO documentary about that.
Yes, and it's very tragic end of that, but it's the same thing where like it starts as kind of like a game, as like for fun, as like and then it just kind of takes on a life of its own, which the whole flat Earth thing has.
Yeah, I always love talking about the celebrities that are flat earthers. Shaquille O'Neal, like somebody was interviewing him, I was watching this, and he's like, they're like, so Shaq, you believe in flat Earth, blah blah blah, and he's like, yeah. Yeah, you mean to tell me we start digging right here, you think we're gonna hit China?
You think we hit China? We start digging right here.
Yeah, I mean, dude.
I love Shaq.
Funny, Shaq's man. So funny. Yeah, but there is a bunch of
Shaq's just a clown. Like he's just clowning. He doesn't.
I know it's funny. Like everybody's always trying to cite and then too, this guy comes on Joe Rogan's podcast. Eddie Bravo is a big jiu-jitsu guy. He is a big time flat earther, and the rumor is that Joe Rogan is going to have the #1 flat earth guy come debate Neil deGrasse Tyson on his podcast.
I would love to see that.
I cannot wait.
Like, the whole thing, I don't know. I still don't. There's got to be a way to check on the internet, like trace that back somewhere, where a group of people are like, "This would be so funny if we could convince people that we think."
Would you think that group could be the Illuminati?
Yeah,
it's like they're strolling us at this stuff. They're like, we're gonna get him.
We're just gonna sprinkle this.
He's just gonna sprinkle it.
Yeah.
Oh, too funny, man. Too funny. Yeah, I'm the same way. I almost just like talking about it because it is like I don't take any of the stuff we mentioned in the last few minutes seriously. It's all like with a grain of salt, but it's like it's fascinating to wonder, like what you're saying. It's like, where did this come from?
Well, and I am contradictory by nature, so I love to just disagree with people in general, and so I understand that side of it, of being like, yeah, but what can you prove? It didn't prove it's not.
Why is anything?
Yeah, and so I do get that, and it's fun, but then there has to be like a reality check.
Yeah, for sure, man. There's got to be a point where you have to look at facts and real information and what you know and what's happened, and that's back to history. That's what I love about it, is that you get to analyze these things. And I will say that, like, I do feel like in the historical community, without giving too much lip service to some of these more controversial things, they should in a way be shut down a little more instead of everybody. Like I'm like just talking to you. Did you know this exists? Did you know that exists? Whereas a lot of historians be like, that doesn't exist.
Well, that's when it becomes dangerous, is because you're trying to tell the story of the Civil War, and there's like all these things that just exist on the internet that aren't real.
But people were saying the Civil War was not fought over slavery was daunting and mind-blowing to me, which I don't know where you stand on that, but I was like, right, that certainly was the cornerstone issue of the conflict.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example, and that's why it becomes really dangerous. So
you're taking away our Southern memorials?
I think the flat earthers are funny, but it just worries me that people don't get it. That people don't get that it's a joke.
You know why, too?
Same with the Tide Pods. I don't think anyone's really eating Tide Pods.
That's crazy. I just picked up on that.
I think a couple people probably did it, but then
they do look tasty.
When you're 16, anything you can do to get a rise out of grown-ups is fun. And I think that's what it is. I just think it's like the craziest thing you can say.
Is that why you're in a punk band?
I had a Tide Pod. Yeah, my life was so hard. I had to be in a punk band in high school.
Dude, I know. It's just like, I loved it, though. I loved it. I used to see you wearing these like plaid pants.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I want some plaid pants.
I had the studded belts. It cost a lot of money to look that cheap.
Too funny, man. That's why I remember in high school, like stores like Hot Topic got on my radar, and it's like that's where I'd always go when I went to the mall, try and get a new band t-shirt.
Yeah. And then at some point we became like too cool for Hot Topic even.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, that's posing.
Everybody.
Not like me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That isn't that funny? Like it's just like there's like you get further and further. It's like I get my stuff at the Goodwill.
Yep.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I get my stuff from Tommy's grandpa when he has a garage sale that no one else knows about.
Yes. You can't get any more cool. Like this, I feel like what we're talking about is pre the word hipster even existing.
Yeah. Well, I have on my SoundCloud, I actually have a song called When Hipster Wasn't Cool. And it's a parody of the country song, I Was Country Before Country Was Cool.
So back on that Todd Snyder thing, he's telling this Garth Brooks story, and then he goes, and that's why I wrote this song. If tomorrow never comes. And he talks about meeting Garth Brooks at the Grand Ole Opry or someplace and being like, hey, man, you wrote my song. And he's like, now, wait a minute. Sort of. And he's like, now, there's a certain amount of creativity, the music. And he's like, oh. How about that? And he's like, I was kind of taken aback that he was defending it. I didn't know what to think about it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, so when he walked away, I was inspired to write this song until tomorrow never comes.
That's awesome.
And that's when he connects Beer Run and that. That's awesome. And he's like, if tomorrow never comes, I don't give a damn. And it just like he just really takes it over the top. But
that's awesome.
Just Todd Snyder, obviously look into him. I do this for tags if we talk about things that I felt, but also for things to look into myself.
I think the Bob Dylan song. House of the Rising Sun.
Yeah.
I think that's a similar story.
Really?
Where he had just heard some guy singing that in a coffee shop or whatever. And then when he went to record his first album, he's like, well, this is a song I know. And released it. And then he saw that guy later and he's like, hey, I'm sorry I recorded your song.
What'd you think of that Dylan video I sent you the other day?
I thought that was great. That was Dylan at his finest.
I thought about you as soon as I saw that. Anyway, like just because popping back into the coffee house days, you singing like a Rolling Stone. Good times. That was originally a Dylan song, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like I never got super into Bob Dylan. That's just like most of his main songs are the ones.
That was that was like his first hit when he switched to and that was like a big deal because he was like, you talk about like, oh, I'm so punk, I'm too punk for you. Like he was like the beacon of the folk music thing, and then he's like, I'm gonna get some electric guitars, and all the folk people were like, no,
how could you?
And he's like, And again, it's just Dylan. He's like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't really care.
That's what I like about. I mean, we use controversial character at times, but I would say the story of Neil Young's career is that he did his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it didn't matter who it would make mad or who he was playing with at the time.
Yeah.
If he was no longer into that, he went on to the next thing.
Yeah.
He just released his whole lifetime of music for free.
Really?
And like 10 unreleased albums.
Wow.
His whole archive.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's massive. But we could talk about the political thing and Floyd and stuff. Neil Young, as he got more political over time and wasn't old man, heart of gold Neil Young, started playing more controversial songs, people booed him out of the stadiums.
Wow.
It was like in the Bush, I think it was Bush Jr., I believe he did a tour where it was like anti-Bush, and Roger Waters did the same thing when Bush Jr. was in office.
Well, that's what's so funny about, like we were talking about with Star Wars, is people say, like, you look at a band like Green Day who made the same album like 50 times in a row, and you're like, man, why do they keep doing that? And it's like, well, it's because every time a band tries to do something new, everyone crushes it. Like you crush Star Wars for trying something new.
Have you?
And then you also crush Green Day for making the same album over and over and over and over again.
Have you heard of a guy? He's a comedian, but he plays music with his comedy called Rob Pavarone. He has this song called Pachelbel's Canon in D, and it's where he tells his story. He's like, it was 37 notes or whatever. He's like, da na 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 na, and he sings it, and then he's like, and then this song, it followed me everywhere for the rest of my life. Sometimes I give myself the creeps, and he starts playing it, and then he's like, suck it in. He sings all of these songs all throughout. I am cold and I am shame. Da 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 da.
Yeah, there really is like only 3 chord structures that you just over and over.
And, I mean, and all of the pop hits that he brought up, you're just like, whoa, that is, wow.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's cool.
Well, man, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I really appreciate you coming on.
This has been a lot of fun for me.
Hey, well, man, it gives us something to do. I love sitting down and talking to people that I've got a lot of respect for. Like I said, you're one of the first people that went on the list just because you're an interesting guy. And it gives us an excuse to hang out.
Business card.
Interesting guy.
Interesting guy.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, but definitely, man, always looked up to you, and I'm glad that I can have you over for a conversation on any day of the week.
I appreciate it. I really admire what you guys are doing with the gym and just making stuff like this happen. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, right on. Well, signing off, my man. We'll see you soon.